What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over the best and worst value on Yahoo Fantasy. We're going to be looking at the default settings for points and category leagues, but we're going to be talking about players pretty broadly. And also before we do that, we're going to be talking about general strategies and some tips and tricks. Before we get into everything, if you guys want to support the channel, make sure you sign up on Underdog Fantasy using code FIREDUP. We have a new promo for you guys. If you guys use my code and you play $5, you get $100 in bonus funds. You also get a 50% match deposit up to $1,000 in bonus funds with this. And lastly, you will get my top 150 Underdog Fantasy Hockey rankings, which should be released in a couple of days. You guys can use these bonus funds to do pick'ems on the NHL, NFL, and more, and also participate in the biggest fantasy hockey contest in the world, the Best Puck Classic. This has $200,000 in prizes, and it's only like 40% filled. This means there could be a huge overlay. The contest pays out the amount that it was set to, regardless of if it fills. So if you guys draft teams, they're probably going to be worth more than what you paid for. It's $15 per draft. There's also $3 drafts as well if you want to do a couple of those. Lots of prizes to be won. And yeah, make sure you head over to Underdog. Available in all of Canada except Ontario, and also available in most US states. Moving on from the promos, let's get into it. Let's start off with talking about Yahoo and how to exploit average draft position. Like I said in my videos, there's such a huge skill gap in fantasy hockey. If you understand your league settings, you're going to be able to crush your competition. And the interesting thing about Yahoo is that when you go into a draft, you can either sort by two things. One is their expert ranking, which it sorts automatically by, and the other one is ADP. The problem with expert ranking is that it's not based on your league settings, and also some of the rankings are completely ridiculous. You can also sort by ADP as well, but ADP isn't perfect either. It's far from perfect. It doesn't account for your league settings. The ADP is basically all the players that have been drafted on Yahoo Drafts, and some people are in category leagues with hits. Some people are in points leagues without hits. Some people have plus minus. Some people don't have plus minus. I could go on, but in general, the ADP is not going to be accurate for your league settings. For example, if your league doesn't count hits, Brady Tkachuk shouldn't go at the 10th pick. JT Miller is another example. He's going really high because he has those hits. Players like Mackenzie Weegar shouldn't go as high. But strangely enough, you also have some really good players that put up hits like Joe Eriksson-Ek, Vincent Trocheck, and Sam Bennett going super late. So yeah, the ADP just doesn't make sense, but you could use that to your advantage. This is why I recommend doing a few things. One is going to Fantrax and making an account, inputting your league settings, and then basically looking at the projections based on your league settings from Fantrax, or also looking at the past few years, looking at total fantasy points and fantasy points per game. That gives you a good idea of which players are valuable according to your league settings versus overvalued. So that's one way. And then the other way is using a projection tool like Apples and Genos, friends of the channel. They have good projections. You guys input your league settings and they spit out the projections for those league settings. Dom from The Athletic, I think you might have to pay for that, maybe like $1.99. I think they have a promo there. Fresh Sheets, I think that's free. That's on Reddit. I would go to the Fantasy Hockey Reddit and look into that, but that's going to be one of the most useful things as well going into your draft. That would be my recommendation. And the only thing I want to talk about as well before we get into these best and worst values is my favorite strategies. My first favorite strategy is avoiding the pure centers in those early rounds. Not the Jack Eichels and the Nathan McKinnons and some of those guys, but once you get to like the 4th or the 5th or the 6th, guys like Nick Suzuki and Robert Thomas, avoiding some of those pure centers and getting some really good value late is what you want to ultimately do. And then I would say my second favorite strategy is getting elite defensemen early. Obviously, this depends on your league settings. In a category league, it still applies, but you know, with hits, defense isn't as scarce as leagues without hits. So it matters more in like a default points league. But essentially for me, if I can get like 4 really good defensemen or 3 really good defensemen and then 1 decent one, and then I can find value at forward in my later rounds, that's how I've been able to dominate some of my fantasy hockey leagues in the last 5 years. There's just so much value at forward in your later rounds that people are not going to reach on like crazy, and you're going to be able to get a steal in those guys. Yeah, generally that's what I like to do. Now let's talk about points leagues. These are the default points league settings: goals, assists, plus minus, power play points, shots on goal, blocks. Blocks and shots are pretty heavily valued here. Plus minus is heavily weighted. It's very punishing. We are going to talk about these players considering these leagues with plus minus, and also considering leagues where your league manager removed the stat or modified it, because I know a lot of people remove it. I know my league managers have. Power play points are pretty heavily weighted as well. But yeah, these are the default settings. We're going to talk about these points leagues. No hits for this. So, you know, some of these bad values are going to be a lot of players that put up hits that show up high in rankings and ADP. Those players are going to be overrated. So yeah, let's start it off with the first couple of rounds. Actually, first, let's talk about goalies here. These are the default settings for goalies. Wins 5, goals against -3, saves 0.6, shutouts 5. I talked about this in my goalie video, so I'll keep this short, but essentially with these settings, goalies that, you know, get a lot of volume and face a lot of shots, they are going to have way more value. But in general, it's not worth it getting goalies very high, right? Some of these goalies are super pricey, like the Connor Hellebucks, and Mackenzie Blackwood goes super high for some reason. I like Blackwood, but it's just too expensive. But yeah, there's tons of goalies in these later rounds, like past 90 ADP, that are going to see like 55 to 60 games and face a lot of shots. My two favorites are honestly Lucas Dostal and Karel Vejmelka. In terms of some other goalies, I like the past 90 ADP, like the Binningtons, the Saroses, the Montembeaus, the Swaymans, the Decords, the Skinners, the Spencer Knights, and also a deep league option could be Jet Greaves of the Blue Jackets. In terms of the worst value, I don't like getting goalies early. Connor Hellebuck, he's not on this page, but you know, he's there in terms of just, I don't love it. I don't love getting any goalie in the top 50. I would say the worst ADP would probably be Mackenzie Blackwood. He's set to miss a start of the season, and this is just very pricey. Darcy Kemper's also pretty pricey here, better in a category league. Aiden Hill is pricey. He's never seen like a ton of games, and they've been linking Vegas to Carter Hart, so it's a little bit concerning for me. Anthony Stolarz, now with this Joseph Woll thing, maybe it's okay, but when Woll comes back, they could be splitting, and you don't want goalies that split in points leagues. It's just not worth it. Like, there's going to be weeks where Stolarz might only get one game. He's just wasting a roster spot pretty much for you. Another goalie also, Pyotr Kochetkov. He's going to be splitting. Yeah, just get some of these volume goalies later that I'm talking about. Moving on to the first couple of rounds, my favorite values are Jack Eichel, Jack Hughes, Evan Bouchard, and Artemi Panarin. I also don't mind Quinn Hughes, Zach Werenski, and Rasmus Dahlin. The only reason for this is because I don't love the forwards in this range, guys. I'm not a fan of Mikko Rantanen's price, William Nylander, Sam Reinhart, Braden Point, Philip Forsberg, JT Miller. You know, obviously the Forsbergs and the Millers. The reason I don't like their price is just because they are only this high because they hit. And in these points leagues, hits are not counted. But with some of these other guys, it's not that I think they're bad. I just think some of these values in the 30 to 45 range are really nice and can perform similarly. So it's just all about ADP value for me. With that being said, when we go on to the next range, like 30 to 60, I think Matt Boldy's great. Shot volume's great. Could be playing top line with Kaprizov, sort of in that prime breakout range. I think he's going to have a similar season to William Nylander, and you're getting him 20 picks later. Jason Robertson, I know he's been disappointing, but contract season, last season missed camp, didn't really start performing until the second half. New head coach, less depth, some concerns with the way they're rolling the lines, but he could perform like a top 20 player for sure. I also like Jesper Bratt. If Jack Hughes is healthy, Bratt could put up 90 points, decent shots, lots of power play points. He could perform like a second round guy. I also like Tage just because the shot volume is so good, and he's one of those guys that can score 50 goals. Like, that's within the range of outcomes for him. Clayton Keller could potentially put up 90 plus points this season. Hopefully they put him with Gunther and Cooley at some point, but I buy the talent and I buy the players around him. So yeah, I'm a big fan of him. Martin Necas as well. I think Necas could be similar to Mikko Rantanen. Necas is going to be sort of in that role, playing with McKinnon, getting like 21 to 22 minutes a night. So much skill, kind of in a contract season as well, right? He's in a contract season. But the other favorite value I have here is Roman Josi. I will say, if you're in a plus minus league, then maybe avoid Roman Josi, and these default settings could be very punishing. But if you're not, or it's modified significantly, this is a guy that can put up 250 shots and almost 200 blocks. You're not going to get that with a lot of other defensemen. And also Josi could potentially go back to being a 20 goal, 70 point player. So yeah, I just think the upside is pretty significant, and he has a very safe floor. My least favorite value is Alex Ovechkin, hands down. Macklin Celebrini, pure center, plus minus is going to be an issue with Celebrini, guys, if your league values that. Mackenzie Weegar, if your league doesn't count hits, this is way too high. Lane Hudson, don't love the shot volume. Blocks are okay. Not a lot of goals. I just think there's not a lot of upside from this ADP. And again, shots are really heavily valued in these default leagues. Nick Suzuki, same thing. Shot volume's bad. I expect regression. I have some concerns with both Montreal Canadiens players here, because with the way they're running the power play units, I have some concern. Like, they may give more ice time to power play 2 than they generally really do, and that will limit their upside potentially. But, you know, that's one thing. But in general, like Nick Suzuki as a pure center, when you have a guy like Heischer going 40 picks later, doesn't make much sense. You also have Connor Bedard. If you're in a plus-minus league, could be really, really bad. So I wanted to emphasize that. He'll be okay. Like, he's going to score goals and put up a lot of shots, but I do think there's a lot of good value in your later rounds. So that's why I like getting some of these other guys and then getting some defensemen, because when I talk about these other players, guys like Dylan Guenther and Mika Zibanejad, when you can get some of these players 50, 60, 70 picks later, then it doesn't feel good investing in forwards at this range. You want to start getting defensemen. Obviously, I mentioned like Roman Josi here. In the next round, in the next range, you're going to see some of those defensemen pop up that I really, really like. Guys like Harley and Sergachev. So yeah, I mean, sort of the same logic with Brandon Hagel, just better value in your later rounds. That's pretty much it, guys. Also, Mark Scheifele as a pure center. I think there's a lot of really good centers later. And then Shea Theodore. Now listen, I do like getting defensemen in this range, but my general concern with Theodore is that in camp, they are having Marner on the point, running the point. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but that's sort of what they're suggesting. I've read a few comments from the coach. That's what they're going to try to do to start the year. It could change and Theodore gets on there, but if not, Theodore is going to be like a 40 to 50 point defenseman at max. And he is a guy that doesn't have good blocks as well, which are heavily weighted. So this is way too pricey. Moving on to the next range. This is the guys I was talking about. These defensemen, I would definitely reach on like 10 picks higher than their ADP. Like, I love these defensemen more than some of the guys, the forwards in the previous range, like Celebrini and Ovi and Nick Suzuki and Bedard and Hagel and Scheifele. You need to reach on these defensemen, in my opinion. Jake Sanderson, Thomas Harley, Mikhail Sergachev, massive upside from their ADP. And then also the forwards that are really good here are Dylan Larkin, Nikolai Ehlers, and Nico Hischier. Nikolai Ehlers can put up the same amount of points as Nick Suzuki, and he's not a pure center. He has left wing, right wing eligibility, and he's going like 40 picks later. I think Ehlers could be better than Hagel going like 40 picks later. You know, Macklin Celebrini, right? Like, there's a lot of upside with Ehlers, lots of shots. And then again, if you want to fade these pure centers earlier, like Suzuki, Robert Thomas, and guys like Mark Scheifele, getting a Larkin or a Hischier at this price feels really good. I also want to mention Seth Jones. Obviously not as bullish on him with Barkov out because it does hurt his team, but I do think Jones will be power play one. I do think he has a lot of shot volume and his blocks are good too. And you're getting him at like 90 ADP, which feels pretty good. In terms of the worst value, I like Seth Jarvis, but this is way too pricey with some of the guys going later. Like Nikolai Ehlers goes 30 picks later. And honestly, I might prefer Ehlers, right? Ehlers might have better shot volume. The only reason Jarvis is this high is because of his hits, right? That's why his ADP is this high. Also in general, like I'm going to talk about some of these crazy sleepers later, like Nichushkin and Guenther and Zibanejad. It's just like, it's too pricey. Robert Thomas, again, pure center. Shot volume is really bad. It's just not worth it. Noah Dobson, he's not on power play one. I think he's like a 40 to 50 point guy. Then you have Drake Batherson. Again, the league does not count hits, so you need to know your league settings and correlation to ADP. So much value later. You know, why is Mika Zibanejad going 50 picks later than Batherson? Alex Tuck is someone that comes to mind. He's going 50 picks later than Drake Batherson. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Matthew Nyes as well. His ADP is as high because of his hits, but he could be a 60 point guy, so way better value later. Mira Heiskanen, his shot volume is okay. The blocks are not good, and right now he's not power play one in camp. It could change, but I just don't love it, especially with some guys going later that I prefer. And then Timo Meier. Meier is not going to be on power play one unless Jack Hughes is injured. That seems like the case really at this point. We've seen in camp, they rotated him in once, but it's Mercer on there with Stefan Nason being out. It is what it is, guys. I just don't think it's worth it at this price with some of the later round values. I also will say I don't necessarily love Alex DeBrincat and Lucas Raymond at their current price with the value that you're getting later. Raymond's also at a disadvantage with the lack of shots, so that's something to mention too. Moving on, some of my favorite values in this range. These guys should be going earlier in my opinion, some by like 30 picks. Like Dylan Guenther should be going at like a 60 ADP. Guenther is the best value on Yahoo, other than probably Mika Zibanejad. I also think Kirill Marchenko should be going like 30 picks earlier, 40 goal potential, lots of shots. Valery Nichushkin, again, I kind of understand this ADP because of the risk, but Nichushkin can perform like a top 40 player if he stays healthy. Line one with McKinnon and H's, power play one right now. Roope Hintz, I dislike Roope Hintz in general as a late round guy, as a center that you're getting super late if you want to fade those pure C's. Zach Hyman, this ADP, if he was healthy, I would say is completely ridiculous, but obviously he is out until early November. But again, it's like a couple of weeks. If you can throw him on your IR, I'm not sure if you can, but if you have an IR plus, then I know you can. Yeah, this is probably going to pay off because he should be line 1 with McDavid and power play 1 as well. I also love Jackson Lacombe here. I think he has 10 goal, 50-point potential, lots of shots, lots of blocks. Carter Verhaeghe as well. Obviously, I've cooled down a little bit on Verhaeghe with this Barkov news, which has definitely depressed me. Very upsetting with the amount of teams I had Barkov on in my drafters best ball team specifically. But still, Verhaeghe, he is a line 1 guy, can put up 250 shots and still put up 30 plus goals. And then the other guy I like here is Joel Eriksson Ek. Ek can put up 250 shots, massive advantage, could put up 30 goals, 60, 65 points on power play 1. I know he's not with Kaprizov in camp right now, but I'm sure they're going to stack that line at times. So yeah, I'm a big fan, especially fading those pure centers that you have to pay a premium on, guys like Suzuki and Thomas, and then getting Joel Eriksson Ek 70 picks later. In terms of my least favorite value, this really just has to do with guys that are going higher because of their hits, which are not counted in these leagues. Uri Slafkovsky, Kiefer Sherwood, Tom Wilson, Alexander Nikishin, Aaron Ekblad, I just think is too pricey in general. And then Neil Pionk. Pionk's going to see regression, and his value really just comes from the hits. Moving on to the next range, some really, really good values here too. Alex Tuch. This ADP makes no sense. I don't love how they separated him from Tage, even strength, but they have him on power play 1, so I guess that sort of balances itself out. We also have Vincent Trocheck. No guarantees power play 1, but he is a really good bumper player. We'll see what they do there, but as a pure center, playing with Panarin even strength, decent shots, I think the upside is there. Pavel Dorofeyev, I get it. He is currently injured, but he's progressing and he's skating again, so I'm not worried about it. Maybe he'll see some games of Marner and Eichel at some point. I'm not betting on it, but playing with Hurdle, even strength is still fine. And with Marner running the point in power play drills, I expect Dorofeyev to be on the right side on the power play. And this guy scored 35 goals last year with 250 shots. Should be a top 5 power play in the NHL. So again, at this price, left wing, right wing eligibility, it's sort of a no-brainer. Also love Morgan Riley here. Has 10 goals, 60-point potential, good shots, decent blocks. Really just good value here if he does stay on power play 1. And then the best value out of all platforms, out of all the players, is Mika Zibanejad. He's on a line with JT Miller, best line he's had in like 4 years. Should be on power play 1 as well because he's been one of the best power play goal scorers in the last 7 years. Don't know why anyone is calling for him to be off power play 1. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He could perform like a top 50 player, guys. Could go back to scoring 30, 35 goals and being a point per game. So yeah, I could go on and on. It's pretty obvious here. Sam Bennett as well. Now he's going to be line 1, should be power play 1 for like at least half the season. Really good shot volume, which gives him a massive advantage in these default leagues. And fading those pure centers and getting Sam Bennett at 150 feels pretty good. The other best value here is Quinton Byfield, center left wing eligibility. Currently on power play 1 because they're running a 5-4 power play unit. It seems like that's what they're going to stick with, at least to start the season. If they switch it up and go back to a defenseman, Byfield could be the guy that gets taken off. So a little bit concerned if that were to happen. But I do think playing with Fiala, even strength, playing on this power play all season long, he could put up 75 points. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan. The worst value here is Drew Doughty, not power play 1, getting older. Shot volume is very bad. Just not a fan. You also have JJ Peterka, with guys like Dorofeyev and Alex Tuch and Mika Zibanejad going later, and some other guys I'm going to talk about. I'm just not the biggest fan for a guy that I don't see getting on power play 1. Also, Matt Duchene, not a fan. If he's not on power play 1, he's going back to being like a 55-point guy. Also, Ivan Barbashev, he's only going this high because of his hits. Moving on, we have some other good values. Matthew Barzal, center right wing, line 1, power play 1. Bo Horvat, if you want to fade those centers early or in those sort of middle-ish rounds and get Bo Horvat at 150, I love that. You also have Cam Fowler. I don't love the shots and blocks, but he should be getting the most power play time out of any defenseman on the Blues, and you're getting him really cheap. I also like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins here. I know the shot volume's bad, but should be getting some minutes with McDavid, even strength, maybe Draisaitl on power play 1, a power play that should be top 5 in the NHL. Brock Nelson. Nelson's power play 1 in camp, which is really interesting to me. Don't know if that's going to stick, but they've ran this for a number of days now, so definitely like that. Top 6 as well, takes a lot of shots. We also have Pavel Buchnevich here. I know the shot volume isn't great, and he hasn't been very good in the last couple of seasons, but he is still playing alongside Robert Thomas. Maybe the power play points bounce back this season. I do think he has a potential bounce back in him, and he has good eligibility as well in Yahoo. So at 160, a guy that has some pretty big weeks in his arsenal, I definitely like it. I also want to mention Brian Rust and Jonathan Marchessault in this range, only if your league does not value plus minus. It could be an issue with Brian Rust and Marchessault because they're not on the best teams. If your league modify plus minus or it's removed, these guys are some of the best values in my opinion. The worst value is Will Coulee, only good for hits. Logan Stankoven just makes no sense. He could be centering that second line, but I don't think he's going to put up more than 50 to 55 points. And then obviously some of the other guys like Liam Bichel and Eric Cernak, guys that have those hits, doesn't matter in this league. Moving on to the next range, definitely some really good players. Adam Fantilli, if you want to get a pure center later, he's definitely a great option. He puts up a lot of shots. I think his blocks are good too. If he is power play 1, we don't have any power play updates in camp just yet, but if he gets on power play 1, the upside is pretty immense. Dylan Cousins in the top 6, power play 1, decent shots. He should be good for 60-65 points. Sean Monahan. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with this power play. I think Monahan should still be on there. It looks like they're going to be running the Marchenko, Voronkov, Monahan line as a top line as well. You know, Monahan was, an over a point per game player last season. Obviously, regression is to be expected, but this late for a guy that could put up 70+ points is pretty good. We also have to mention Tony DeAngelo here. You never know with Schaefer, but I do think DeAngelo has a good shot of quarterbacking his power play 1 all season long. Plus minus may be really bad. That's something that we need to mention, but he could be good for like 45 to 50 points. Cole Perfetti's also solid. Brock Besser, one of my favorite values, guys. Line 1 with Elias Pettersson, power play 1, decent shots. He could score 35 goals and put up 70 points. That's in the range of outcomes for Besser, and you were getting him super freaking late. Another guy here is Cutter Gauthier. The shot volume is great. Don't know if this season's going to be the breakout. It really is going to depend on power play deployment and ice time in general, but I think he's a pretty safe floor player, and you know, you're getting him at a pretty good price. I also want to mention Patrick Kane. If your league took away plus minus, then this is pretty good value too. His ADP is like 170 as well. Could still put up a lot of shots and put up like 70 points on a power play that was top 5 in the NHL last season. In terms of the worst value here, we're sort of getting into the weeds where you kind of see those heavy peripheral guys that are going to be more beneficial in category leagues. So I don't want to mention all of them. There's a lot of bad values, but I think Brent Burns is pretty terrible value, right? If you're just comparing it to the left side, you can see like, you know, Brent Burns going ahead of Adam Fantilli doesn't make too much sense. Tyler Seguin doesn't really make too much sense. And Matthias Michelli. Now, I think Michelli's going to be solid. I think he's going to play with Matthews, but his upside is probably like 60 points at max. He's probably more of like a 50 to 55 point player. Not going to be on power play 1. Terrible shot volume. So yeah, I mean, you're paying a leaf tax on this one, right? In terms of the rest here, definitely some really good values here, but some of them will be bad in plus minus. So if you're in these default settings, then avoid like Will Smith and Tyler Toffoli, probably Trevor Zegras could have really bad plus minus, but Chris Kreider, Jared McCann, Sam Renzel, another guy you might want to avoid if you're in a plus minus league. If not, then really good value. Will Smith, Tyler Toffoli, Oliver Bjorkstrand, who's on power play 1, Ken Johnson, Marco Rossi, who's line 1 power play 1 right now, Jake DeBrusk, line 1 power play 1, Anton Lindell in the top 6 now, and Barkov out. I don't know about power play 1 deployment, but he's always stepped up when Barkov's been out. Nick Schmaltz, the shot volume is not that good, but he's playing with Keller even strength, and he's also on power play 1 as well. He could potentially be good for 70 points. Leo Carlson, bad shot volume, but line 1 power play 1 probably has that breakout potential. And then Trevor Zegras. You know, Zegras could be playing with Michkov. He's on power play 1, and he could put up 70 points. I also want to mention some undrafted guys that should not be going undrafted. The number 1 guy being Troy Terry. Terry has 35 goal potential, 70 points, decent shot volume. It just doesn't make any sense, guys. I'm targeting him in a lot of my drafts. Josh Norris, line 1 with Tage, power play 1. If he stays healthy, he could be good for like 35 goals and 65 points. Somewhere around that range is possible, so big fan of that. Elias Lindholm, I'm not the biggest fan, but he is line 1 with Pasternak and power play 1, so the upside is still there. Barrett Hayden, power play 1 in camp, playing on a line with Keller, who he's had chemistry with. I hope that doesn't stay the same, to be honest. No offense, Barrett Hayden, but this is still good value. Matty Benier, same thing. Philip Hedl could be power play 1 in the top 6. Frank Nazar, power play 1 in the top 6. Jamie Drysdale, super late if you look at expert ranking. You know, he's not the peripheral guy, the shots and the blocks guy, but he is on power play 1, and I think 50 points is possible. I think this power play is going to improve. But obviously, I want to mention that some of these guys, their plus minus isn't going to be very good, right? Like Jamie Drysdale, Frank Nazar, some of these guys, be cautious of that. All right, moving on, let's talk about the category leagues. Obviously, some of you are going to have different cats, so it's hard to cover everything, but looking at the default settings on Yahoo, you have goals, assists, plus minus, power play points, shots and goal and hits for forwards, And for goalies, you have wins, goals against average, save percentage, and shutouts. Now, obviously for goalies, if your league manager added saves to these cats, then some of these volume goalies may be applicable, but with these, you really don't want those goalies on bad teams. I still don't generally like drafting goalies very high, but I do recognize some good value at ADP here. I think Igor Shesterkin going as what, the 5th goalie off the board after Mackenzie Blackwood doesn't make much sense. I think Anthony Stolarz is solid. Logan Thompson as well should have really good numbers. Jacob Markstrom, Linus Allmark, and then Karel Vejmelka might be a little bit shaky with the goals against average and save percentage, but I do think at this price, it's like, what do you have to lose at this price, right? He could rack up a lot of wins, and you never know. Maybe he has a solid save percentage. In terms of goalies you want to avoid, the goalies on bad teams like Sam Montembeault and UC Saros. I know Montreal is not the worst team, but you want to avoid bad defenses. Montembeault is not going to have a good save percentage and goals against average. Jeremy Swayman. Yeah, you just generally want to avoid those goalies that are on bottom 10 teams. Now, obviously, some of you may be in category leagues with blocks. These do not count blocks. Some of these players I'm going to talk about, though, I'm sort of covering the general principle of finding players that are going to maximize your categories and fill as many cats as possible. That would be my general strategy. Finding guys that can put up goals, assists, also are on power play 1, but also put up good shots, hits, and blocks. I feel like that's the best way to do it rather than just focusing on, one category and getting some of those guys. If you can get all your players to fill every cat, then I feel like that gives you the best chance possible. With that being said, in terms of the best value here, Brady Tkachuk, Jack Eichel, Jack Hughes. Obviously, Tkachuk is with the hits and the shots. With Eichel and Hughes, you're going to have insane shot volume, and I just think they're good value in general. Rasmus Dahlin, he can put up really good peripherals. Philip Forsberg has the shots and the hits. JT Miller has the hits and obviously a lot of point upside. Matt Boldy has a lot of shot volume, and I just think he's good value. Jason Robertson, again, I just think this is solid value. Jesper Bratt is solid value in all formats. He has some sneaky hit potential as well. Tage Thompson has the shot volume that you want, could put up 300 plus shots. I also think Roman Josi is solid value with the shot volume that he has. Moritz Seider has to be one of the best picks in this range on power play 1 on a top 5 power play last season. Shots, hits, and blocks. He has everything you want. In terms of the worst value here, it's going to be guys that aren't going to be covering a huge amount of cats. Like Quinn Hughes is too overpriced in my opinion. Braden Point as well. The shot volume's not there. Non-existent hits. Pure center, so just not a fan with the depth that you can get. Like in a category league with hits, Joel Eriksson is going to be better than Braden Point in a lot of scenarios just because the shot volume and the hits with him. Lane Hudson, really bad shots, no hits. The peripherals aren't there to justify the price, especially the goals as well. Connor Bedard, just not the biggest fan. Plus minus could be a big issue. I think there's better value in your later rounds. Shea Theodore. Theodore is a guy that doesn't hit. Shot volume is solid, but my main concern that I talked about earlier in the points league section is that they have Marner running the point in power play drills. So if that's the power play, then Theodore is not going to be on it. It's going to be Dorofiev on that right side. It's not going to be Theodore, and that's going to massively cap his ceiling. Moving on to the next section, like 60 to 120. Seth Jarvis is good price because he's going to cover so many cats. He puts up those hits. John Tavares is solid because he has really good shot and hits. Mikhail Sergachev, good hits, good shots, just underrated in most formats at this price. Definitely good blocks too if your league manager added blocks to this. Drake Batherson has those hits, has those shots, power play upside, 70 point potential, 30 goals. Matthew Nye, similar situation with the hits and the power play deployment. Seth Jones, Travis Konechny's also solid, shots, hits, power play upside. Uri Slafkovsky obviously has a lot of cat potential. Dylan Holloway, very sneaky player in a cats league, especially his expert rank on Yahoo is super low. He could be like the new sort of Timo Meyer. He had like 160 hits last year. The coach loves him in terms of the deployment that he was getting, so I feel confident in that. Hopefully we get some more power play one time. Has a lot of shots as well. Definitely one of my favorite cats players. And then Andrei Svechnikov. I think Svechnikov is so underrated at this price. You can put up 200 hits and 250 shots. Logan Stankoven as the second line center could elevate his even strength production on power play 1. Yeah, he's probably the best value, I would say, in these default category leagues. Then you have Tom Wilson, obviously a no-brainer. Zach Hyman, really good price, good shots, good hits. Should be line 1 with McDavid, should be power play 1. He's going to be back November, so if you can throw him on your IR or IR plus, that would be ideal. Jackson Lacombe, I think his shot volume is going to go up. Solid hits, has 10 goal, 50 point potential. And then finally, the other best value, I would say, similar to Andrei Svechnikov and Dylan Holloway, way, those would be my three sort of favorite values. But yeah, I mean, the sort of thesis for Joel Eriksson is amazing shots, amazing hits. Gonna play with Kaprizov on some nights. Should be, you know, a lock for that net front role in power play 1. So yeah, fade those early centers. You know, he's gonna have so much more value. Like I said earlier, more value than a guy like Braden Point in this league. In terms of the worst value, Robert Thomas, pure center, bad peripherals. Lucas Raymond, really bad shot volume, no hits, just a little bit too pricey. Miro Heiskanen, bad peripherals, not power play 1 in camp. And then Luke Hughes. I like Luke Hughes in certain leagues because I do think he's going to get on power play 1 at some point, but the shots and hits are not there. And this is just too pricey when you have guys like Darnell Nurse and other guys that are going to put up really good shots and hits in your later rounds. For the next range, like 120 to 180, Alex Tuck covers so many cats. Really good price here. One of my favorites. Vincent Trocheck. Some concern today. As I was recording this, I saw they talked about putting Alexi Lafreniere on power play 1 in some spots. Don't know if that's going to happen. Obviously, that limits Trocheck's upside, but regardless, he's going to help you fill your hits category every single week, and this is just a really good price. Nazem Kadri is also solid if you want to get a pure center later. Mika Zibanejad, this is just amazing value regardless of your league settings. Sam Bennett, now line 1 with Barkov being out, shots and hits. Amazing value in a category league, similar to sort of the Vincent Trocheck and the Joel Eriksson type players. Really, really good. I'm definitely reaching on those type of players in these category leagues. Quinton Byfield. I think Byfield has some sneaky hit upside, could put up 100 hits. Hopefully we see shot volume go up. Power play 1 in camp with this 5 forward unit. Breakout potential. Brian Rust, definitely a big fan. Could tank your plus minus category if you have that, but this is really good value. The shots and the hits are there. Line 1, power play 1. Will Coulee on this line with Miller and Zibanejad. So many hits. Has 50-point potential. Darnell Nurse obviously covers a lot of cats and just good value. And also Jonathan Marchessault. Similar to Brian Rust, the plus minus may be an issue, but elite shots, good hits, really good deployment. In terms of the worst value here, JJ Peterka, I don't see him being on power play 1. The shots weren't great last year. The hits are not good. Just too pricey. Ivan Demidov, I don't know what his upside is this season. I think he's going to be amazing in a couple of years, but you know, the peripherals won't be there, and I think he's just too pricey with some of the guys that are going later that I just talked about. Matt Duchene, similar reasoning. Dylan Strome, similar reasoning with some of these centers. I think there's better centers late. Like Sam Bennett's going 7 picks later, and Bennett's going to provide way more value in these category leagues with hits. So it makes no sense to me. Zane Prek, I think the peripherals are going to be really bad, and yeah, just too pricey. Brock Faber, don't know why he is going this high still. It's clear he's not going to be power play 1, and the peripherals are not good. And then I would probably say Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, because there are so many players with good peripherals later on that are going to cover more cats and put up similar points. Just doesn't make too much sense. Lastly, we have some really good players in this range. Adam Fantilli, shots, hits, and blocks monster, has that huge breakout upside if he gets power play 1. Dylan Cousins, this guy put up like 150 hits last year, or it was close to like 200. I think it was an outlier season, but he's still good for, you know, 200 shots and 125 hits, I would say. 60 to 70 point potential. You also have Morgan Geekie. Geekie might tank your plus minus category, but this guy has like 150 hit, 200 shot potential, 30 goals, line 1 with Pasternak, power play 1. One of my favorite guys to grab in a category league. Brock Besser, just good value in my opinion. Evander Kane, amazing shots and hits. Saw some looks on power play 1 in camp, although I think Filipino wasn't in that grouping, so you never know, but some mystery upside there. I just think this is amazing value in a category league. Cutter Gauthier has decent hits, lots of shots, has a breakout potential, can score a lot of goals. And Chris Kreider. I know Chris Kreider was terrible last year, but he is line 1 in camp, has those shots, has those hits, and this is just really good value. Some other good values, in my opinion, are Sam Renzel. Might tank your plus minus, so be wary of that, but I think he could have good shots, hits, and blocks. Could put up 10 goals and 50 points being on this power play 1. Tyler Toffoli could be an issue with plus minus, but really good shots, decent hits, 60 to 70 point potential, really good price. Owen Tippett has the peripherals. Jake DeBrusk, line 1, power play 1, has shots, has hits. Boone Jenner is like a fantasy unicorn with the shots, hits, and blocks. Obviously, these default category leagues do not count blocks, but still, the shots and hits are pretty elite. Could be on power play 1 as well. That's a potential. Zachary Bolduc. Bolduc puts up really good hits, and he is power play 1 in camp as a net front guy. I'm sure they're going to switch things around, but some mystery upside there if he does maintain that power play deployment. And then finally, Josh Norris. This guy puts up elite hits, so he needs to be drafted in a category league with hits. Pure center, I understand it's a deep position, but undrafted, you're getting insane value. Line 1 with Tage, power play 1. If he can stay healthy, definitely one of my favorite values in these leagues. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope this helped you identify some of these sleepers, the good values and the bad values. Again, it's going to depend on your league settings. I'm sure some of your league managers have tinkered with them, but I still think this gives good general advice. So hit that like button if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.